true Silver Championship last weekend. Literally, we
Yeah.
saw so many 3-0s from Druid. I know this is a different format, but Sottle was probably kind of sick and tired of seeing Druid win and says, no, I just want to get rid of it.
Yeah, interesting enough. The just going to get into the observing game. Sorry, I had to ask one of the players to turn their spectate on, and I was waiting for it to come up. So.
Oh, right, okay. But yeah, we're going to be heading into the mulligan right now, or I think we're just about heading into the game, to be quite honest, on this one. But it looks like decent draws for both of them, and honestly, looking a lot like double Zoo right now.
It's Zoo versus Zoo right here, for sure. Pretty good opening hand. I'd say a very good opening hand here for Sottle. He's actually going to coin out the Flame Imp as well, so that next turn he can deal with that Voidwalker very easily.
Yeah, he certainly can. And I mean, that's kind of the premium combo right there, I would say, for a first turn, or I suppose second turn technically if you've got the coin. But you know, to be able to on your first turn get out the Voidwalker and the Flame Imp, it's just like instant board control, and you're already ahead of the tempo. Your opponent is always playing to catch up to your board control, not the other way around.
Now, Mysterious has got a decision here. I was going to say, do you Sergeant and just run the 3-3 into the other Voidwalker, or do you kind of play a Knife Juggler or play the Haunted Creeper? I think what's interesting in the hand of Mysterious is that Sea Giant. It could really make or break the game depending on what Sottle draws. The Power Overwhelming kind of probably, yeah, I think that's your standard go-to choice. If it's there, it's pretty much an instant click, right?
I think out of all three, that was the best choice here. I actually really like the Abusive Sergeant play by Mysterious. It means now he has the option to clear the 2-drop that we were expecting to see. The issue for him now is what does he do here? Because you play Knife Juggler, it just dies. I would say Haunted Creeper is the better option and then trade into the 2-2, because then you know your Haunted Creeper can trade into the 3-1 afterwards.
And of course, if the Haunted Creeper does survive, you can use them for the juggles next turn as well, if you choose to play that. But at the moment, Mysterious isn't really playing mana efficiently. He doesn't have the cards, he hasn't been able to play on his curve. Whereas Sottle has kind of had the perfect draw, obviously, especially with the coin as well. And it does look like, I just want to note on, that Mysterious has got a better webcam this week.
Also not zoomed in on his face. We can see all of Mysterious's face this week, which is making him slightly less mysterious.
Perhaps he was a little shy week one.
Interestingly, this is something that I've wanted to talk about in Hearthstone for a while. Mysterious went to face, obviously, instead of trading. There's two reasons for that. You don't want to increase the power of the Haunted Creeper. And also, a lot of people, when you know your opponent is going to trade for you, you won't make the trade.
Yeah.
Always lucky right here from Mysterious.
Don't even need to make the trade.
So grimace from Sottle there. I think he kind of raised his eyebrows when he saw the juggler played, and he is raising his eyebrows yet again because it looks like Mysterious is actually going to trade in here, and I mean just give Sottle more board.
This has got to indicate that there's a Sea Giant in hand, right? There's only one option to that to be the case.
Yeah.
So the Implosion would play into the hands of the Sea Giant.
Defender of the Argus would play away from it, though.
But I think Sottle would have read into that. He's not a stupid player, but he's a very intelligent player. He can definitely read well.
One thing you could do to play against the Sea Giant is, if you Argus, obviously, your 2 minions, you can then trade your 2-2 into that Knife Juggler. You deal with a lot of the board. You can even proc one of the 1-1s just to get another imp, and you're still just trading 1 minion for 1 minion, so you're not going to reduce the cost at least.
Either way, whatever play he makes, I'd still think that we see Sea Giant next turn, right? No, regardless, I think because it's the Imp Gang boss, because you're going to trade into the Knife Juggler, then even if you trade into a 1-1 or don't trade into the 1-1,
well, we're definitely going to see it now.
Okay, we're definitely going to see it.
There we go. So that's
a 1-mana Sea Giant.
That's a guaranteed Sea Giant right there, and there we go. In fact, it's even going to be free unless he trades the 1-1, which he will. But so 3 mana, but I mean that's a guaranteed life tap in Sea Giant.
Again, Mysterious is just struggling to play on curve here.
Okay, so you could Implosion the Imp Gang boss, and then you could get a 1-mana Sea Giant on the board, right? So you could actually play Implosion and Sea Giant in the same turn. Or you could obviously just play Imp Gang boss, which makes it slightly easier.
But I mean, this Sea Giant goes down quite easily to Power Overwhelming, even Defender of Argus, and then Power Overwhelming.
I would say that's the better option, because Power Overwhelming gives you a 5-5. Then you have to trade 3 of your imps in as well. It kind of clears the board for Mysterious. He knows it's going to go down, right? He's pretty sure it'll go down anyway, but it's acting more as a board clear as it is anything else.
I mean, it was quite significant. Did Sottle hit for 4 for his Implosion?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so we say the Implosion plays into the hands of Mysterious being able to play the Sea Giant, but just having that 4 damage on board and knowing your Power Overwhelming is in hand, I mean, that's an instant clear right there.
So you Defender of Argus your Imp Gang Boss and another Imp, and then Power Overwhelming, trade one of the buffed Imps in.
Yeah. And I mean, considering what's in hand right now as well, this is actually looking great for the likes of Sottle, because, in fact, actually going to Power Overwhelming onto the Gang Boss.
Yeah,
so
then you can
keep as many Imps as possible.
You can Defender of Argus and... Okay, I mean, all of those plays worked fine. This just maintains his 2 taunts on board slightly easier.
And now it's just a matter of Mysterious life tapping like crazy, just praying to get something.
I mean, Dr. 7 off the top. Again, not quite ready for it.
Well, it's your next turn, isn't it?
Exactly.
At least just setting yourself up.
You can tap and then Implosion and clear the defended Imps regardless, because you know that 2 is going to be the minimum roll anyway.
The Knife Juggler in the hand of Sottle is going to be...
3 mana. Is that tempting? How tempting is that?
I would say getting the 1/1s is more valuable right now.
If you Implosion and hit for 4, can you play the Sea Giant for free?
Yes. If you Implosion one of the 2/2s and it hits for 4, you can play the Sea Giant for free.
Risk and reward. Do it.
I think, actually, if you play the Sea Giant, considering you just played one, he used a Power Overwhelming, the odds of him actually having anything to deal with another Sea Giant are pretty slim.
But he can deal with it.
And he's got his own Sea Giant.
I mean, so Knife Juggler into Imp Gang Boss, into Voidwalker, fills up the board, but you get a Sea Giant for 1 mana if you clear one of them.
You could just Knife Juggler, Imp Gang Boss, then Sea Giant, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably the play. And hope that your Juggles hits twice.
Because you know the Zoo runs absolutely no AoE clear. So you're playing against the Zoo that runs absolutely no AoE clear. Because they don't run Hellfire.
So do you just go face? Do you just ignore this Sea Giant? Do you just say, okay, you've got a Sea Giant, but I've got a Taunt on board. I'll clear the rest of it, leave your Nerubian Egg up. He's just going to hope that these Juggles don't go into that Nerubian Egg, actually.
Yeah. I mean, he's got good... He's only like 20% per knife to hit that egg, so he's... Shouldn't be too worried about that one. You'd have to get pretty unlucky for that to be the case. Both hit face, which is not ideal, but you can just trade 1/1s if you really want to.
And
you still have your taunt out.
So I'm interested to see whether he can make use of this Nerubian Egg, because he's going to have something to make the Nerubian Egg work, like an Abusive Sergeant, and he's going to have to hit an Implosion for 3 here, right? Either way, it's not looking great for Mysterious. He does have the Boom to back him up after the next turn, but if he plays Boom now, he's just strictly dead.
And there's a lot of things that
there's
can
18
come off
damage
the
on board, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that come off the top for Sottle to win him the game.
And we wouldn't even need a top deck, right? So
well, you would assume that both of those taunts are going to go down.
And then the 8/8 is going to go into the 8/8. So you've got to hope for a... You've got to hope for a 3 or more damage Implosion. That's the only way you win, right? So you Abusive the Egg, and then you hope for a 3 damage Implosion. Or you tap, hope you find Power Overwhelming, and then use Implosion on the 2/2, guaranteeing you get through the taunts. But that's also equally, potentially more risky.
Yeah, I think a tap is probably too risky here. But he's going to do it anyway. The Argus is actually... hits for 2. And that's pretty much all going to wrap up this game, I would have thought. It's not quite full lethal that yet, though.
Yeah, I mean,
or
we'll
is
see
it 8-10? No, it is. It's 15.
And now
well, there's a Leroy, so that
Leroy.
pretty much seals the deal right there, and that is going to be lethal coming out. So, well played by Sottle. Is going to be able to take this first game, and I really feel like when you're playing a mirror matchup, it's very important to take that first game. If you can secure that first match when you know you're playing the same deck, or at least similar deck, it's got to do a lot for your confidence, and also to knock your opponent's confidence, because it's kind of like, I just simply did better than you this game.
It's also knowing that that is now a Zoolock, so kind of you can prepare your other decks around them, you can mulligan around them, and you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, obviously speaking of which of the decks do you think that Sottle's going to queue into it next? If indeed you think the Mysterious will go with the Zoolock once more.
So Sottle's
Well, we've got Shaman and Druid remaining for Sottle.
Shaman, no. So Shaman, yes, but Druid, no, right? That would be the general line of ruling if you think he's going to go with the Zoolock again. So I imagine you've got to get into the head of players, because in this kind of format, sometimes you think that Zoo will just do well in most matchups, but Face Shaman is pretty good against the Zoolock.
If it's Face Shaman, who knows? Maybe it'll be a mid-range.
He ran Face Shaman last week,
He
right?
did, yes.
So Face Shaman really is the only competitively viable Shaman that we have. I mean, obviously you can play mid-range Shaman, and I have seen some on the higher ends of ladder, but most people play Face Shaman, right? So if you're Sottle, you probably queue Face Shaman in next, because it can beat pretty much anything given the right draws. And even more so, you know your Druid is particularly bad against his Zoolock, which is something that, given that he queued it first, is he going to go back to it again? Because, again, Zoolock has a pretty decent time against a lot of matchups.
Absolutely. Let's bring up our versus screen once more and take a look at the decks that are remaining. It's going to be either Shaman or Druid for Sottle, and it's going to be up against either the Warrior, Warlock, or Paladin. And obviously we know that Warlock is a Zoolock. We saw a lot of Grim Patron last week. Well, I mean, maybe that's
if that's Secret and Patron, all of that lineup does well against Druid, right? Every single one of them does pretty well into the Druid matchup.
Well, we're into the mulligan, and despite kind of what we just discussed, the Druid is going to be the pick. So maybe some mind games coming out from Sottle right now.
Yeah, he's got the 2 Wrath. I guess you keep 1 Wrath in hand and just mulligan everything else. Maybe keep the Shade of Naxxramas as well. I always feel like Shade is a little bit too passive against the Zoolock, but it can come in big when you're looking at potentially later on.
I mean, we say Druid might struggle against Zoo, but it does have the means of clearing with the likes of Swipe. I mean, Druid does focus on just controlling that board until you get to a situation where you can use the combo, right?
Yeah. We already know that it's combo Druid because we can see a combo piece in hand.
Yeah.
Now, this is a sort of a test for Sottle. Does he... I mean, he's got options. You can innovate the Shade. I don't like that. I think waiting and innovating the Keeper of the Grove next turn, knowing that most 2-drops from the Warlock are going to be 2 health, and then you get a 2/4 body on board.
I like the Innovate Shade.
Okay.
Personally, it's kind of the play that I usually go for, especially when you've got a Wrath sat there as well to take down something.
I kind of agree with you in that sense, but I just feel like that against Zoo, Innovate Keeper of the Grove is really huge, especially just to maintain a bit of board control.
I mean, the tempo swing is big. It depends how you use the Shade. I know Sottle does like to kind of just put the damage in with the Shade when he can.
Yeah.
When he thinks, okay, it's probably not going to be killed next turn, let's just use it for controlling the board. He does go for the Innovate Shade, which I do think is a solid play, but your play, he would have been able to Keeper of the Grove this Dark Peddler.
Yeah, for sure. There's actually a really awful set of 1-drops here, and Corruption is going to be chosen for Mysterious. He had the choice of Bloodsail Raider and also the Murloc 2/1. So yeah, not great for not great for Mysterious here. The Wrath is going to come down, so he can clear with Wrath regardless.
And now he's got the option of coining out the Keeper next turn. So I think the thing is that was the right play from Sottle.
So
I can definitely go with this.
You can coin silence this 2/4, then run your Shade into it, right? I wouldn't run the Shade into it, but you can do. Just because you're trying to sort of maintain that little element of board control. We know that whatever the play, we know that Mysterious can either deal with the Shade, or he can deal with the Keeper of the Grove if the Shade stays stealth. So honestly, there's a pretty good hand to deal with the board in terms of what Mysterious is bringing here, but
you're always worried about that Argent Squire when it's still got the Divine Shield,
yeah.
because you often see it get buffed by the likes of the Abusive Sergeant. But we are going to see the Keeper of the Grove silencing the Imp Gang boss there, which I think is a fine play. And he does run the 4/2 in. I did say Sottle does like to use his Shade to kind of control board, but the Abusive Sergeant being on the other side for Mysterious will trade into it quite well, and it won't let it buff any more damage.
Yeah, and he trades into it for free with the Divine Shield as well. You play the Haunted Creeper now also.
Even Corruption, yeah.
Okay, I mean, you're not going to get much value of Corruption elsewhere, right? So
I feel like the thing about Corruption is, if it's a big enough minion to feel like you've got value out of it, then you don't want it alive for an extra turn.
Yeah.
You want to deal with that instantly. So I don't really disagree with getting rid of that early.
So you could potentially force a board clear from Mysterious here if you hero power down either the 1/1 or the 2/1. You probably the 1/1 just to save yourself save the damage. You can proc the Haunted Creeper from your 2/2 and then just play your Living Root Saplings. And you can basically almost force an entire board clear, because you might want to see the trades in from Mysterious afterwards. That would leave just a singular 1-1 on the board.
And this is the problem with Druid versus Zoo, though, isn't it? Is that obviously Druid does rely on the board control, but Zoo can just put so much pressure on you that you constantly feel behind, and you really need to draw into that swipe if you really want to have any real control of the game.
But Mysterious's hand looks pretty empty right now, and that's the issue for Zoo. If you don't have the minions to flood after a board control.
So it does look like Sottle's going to go for your play. Is he going to play the Living Roots? It's the real question. He's not. He's going to opt to just leave the Creeper alive, which, yeah, is a fair enough play. Yeah, there's only 1 damage left on board. That's not too much to be worried about.
I guess he's worrying about potentially adding more tokens to the board for the Sea Giant.
Yep. The tap does
which he
draw
knows
another Creeper.
He knows exist. He knows 2 exist, right, in the deck of Mysterious right now. So he knows that there is potentially huge threats coming through, and he doesn't have that BGH in hand or anything to deal with that Sea Giant. In fact, actually, his turn right now is pretty dire.
I mean, your option is what? Living Roots in one of the Creepers, then Wrath for a card draw, and then clearing with Hero Power, and that just takes out. But that's using a lot of cards to take out such a pointless minion, I would say.
Do you just Wrath one of these to go for the card draw and just see what you get? I think you can clear an entire. Oh, wow, okay.
So he's going to opt for the Saplings, which is fair enough. Just get some tokens on board.
But that's exactly what you want to play away from, right? With the Sea Giant. And Sottle's like, I think Sottle's thinking, wait, I'm not sure I wanted all these tokens on board.
I think he's shaking his head just at his lack of anything that he can play right now. He's got the combo in hand, but you don't really want it there if you've not got any board control at all, as we do see the Sea Giant drop down now.
He knows he punished himself there. He knows he punished himself. He thought, okay, I've actually just played right into the hands.
It's because he had nothing else to do. His hand was so dire. And even now, like, what do you do with that hand? That is literally nothing. You've got to Wrath and just go for card draw and just hope for... Well, what can you even hope for? Swipe doesn't even really help.
You Wrath for the card draw, and you just swipe to get rid of some of the 1/1s, right?
If you get the swipe, yeah.
Yeah, if you get the swipe.
And I wouldn't be surprised if later in the game we do see Sottle having to use this Force of Nature Savage Roar to clear board. And that always feels really bad as a Druid doing that.
It feels very bad.
It feels very bad.
I think you have to go for the card draw here, right? I mean, you can't do nothing.
Well, you can do nothing.
Well, you can do nothing,
but it's not going to help.
It's not a great play.
I'm just trying to think what he could draw into that would help him. I think Swipe is the only card that can...
BGH. He draws into BGH. Almost.
So he opts to put the 1 damage on the Sea Giant. That's understandable. It means there's 1 less damage on the board. But I think Sottle knows this game is kind of running away from him right now.
Yeah, and the worst part as well is that Dr. Boom is available for turn 7 while the Sea Giant is still there to be dealt with. Now you've got 2 massive threats, and yeah, Sottle going to agree with that. He does not want to have to try and deal with the 7/7 and the 8/7.
I mean, even if he went Azure Drake into BGH, literally no way he survives anyway. I think even on board, just given that 8 damage went to face, so there was no way back for Sottle at that game. And we knew that there was double power overwhelming in hand for Mysterious, so we knew that regardless, even if there was some sort of miracle clear, he was still dead.
I think Sottle was kind of shaking his head from like turn 3, really. His card draw just wasn't there. And I'm glad he did concede. He didn't delay the game. He didn't delay the inevitable. He kind of knew. He's been in that situation so many times.
I'm glad you gave up.
No, but
Screw
like,
you.
He knows what was going to happen. He kind of said, right, yeah.
I don't want to be working for that long, guys. I'm glad he just gave us less time.
Yeah, but that is going to be 1-1 apiece now. And that's both Zulocks managed to take a victory right now. So Warlock is going to be out of the running completely. And now we're going to be moving on to the rest of the deck. So we've got Warrior and Paladin remaining for Mysterious, and we have Shaman and Druid remaining for Sottle. So, bearing in mind we just saw the Druid picked up when the Zoo was still available, do you think Sottle still sticks with that Druid?
Yeah.
I think he's got to get a win with the Druid. Well, obviously, that's how the format works. But he's going to be looking at the other heroes from Mysterious. I think Sottle might be a little bit worried about this Druid now.
I think this is a similar lineup that actually we saw Mysterious bring last week, right?
Yep.
In the fact it was the Paladin, the Warlock, and the Warrior. We can probably assume that the deck archetypes stay the same. So it's Secret Paladin, Patron Warrior, and Zoo. If they are staying the same from last week. Obviously, there's the chance they could have changed. All of which do well against Druid. So Sottle realistically has to get a win with Druid against one of these decks. So I think you're right. I think you just queue up the Druid because you have to get a win, right? You can either try and even up the series by going for Face Shaman, which can do well against these, because as a Face Shaman, especially against something like a Secret Paladin, most of the time you're not even going to be looking to proc the secrets, right? It's a bit like Freeze Mage. You can just delay and use all those spells to go face.
Absolutely. Well, we're heading into our third game of this series, and it looks like on my screen the mulligan has begun. It is going to be Druid versus Warrior here. So Sottle bringing that Druid, and Mysterious going to be running with the Warrior, and we'll see the mulligan underway. I mean, looking very much like a patron coming out from Mysterious. Telltale cards there in the hand, and I mean, we've already seen the Druid. Well, we've seen some of the Druid from Sottle. We didn't really see all too much of it, but
it was definitely combo. We saw the combo pieces.
I mean,
so.
The worry with Druid against Patron is when those Patrons are on board, there is really very little you can do to clear it. I mean, even with Azure Drake plus Swipe, you're still struggling to get rid of all those Patrons.
The only thing as a Druid you can do to deal with a Patron board is have board control before the Patrons come down, which is usually very difficult. But with Wild Growth and Innovate in hand, this could be a good start for Sottle.
He just needs to draw into some minions this time. Harrison Jones actually is going to play a very important factor in this game.
Especially with Innovate. If turn 4 Harrison comes down, you can force the Death Rattle before it can proc on the Patrons. That is a really good card to bring to the Patron Warrior matchup as the Druid.
Definitely is. And it's interesting to see him choose to tech in the Harrison there. And it will be for this reason. And the Shade coming out now. I guess you just Wild Growth here. Yeah, some would say coin into Shade, but I think Wild Growth is a solid play.
You Wild Growth for sure, I think. It's like the staple turn 2 Druid play. You can coin into Shade, but I mean, how useful is that going to be? Next turn, you can then coin Azure Drake, right? So
I think you've got to bear in mind, like, how much you lose by doing the Wild Growth at the time, and I don't think the extra 1/1 on the Shade is really going to be enough of a deal to just deny that extra mana. Getting closer to being able to, I mean, next turn he can coin Harrison Jones if, say, like a Fiery Warx or the Death Spite or whatever comes out.
I think it'll be the Death Spite he's going to want to target with the Harrison Jones just to try and stop the Patron.
Ooh, double Innovate. You coin Azure Drake here, I guess.
You said that really softly.
I'm sorry. I just
double Innovate.
It's always nice to see that, but you've not actually got any minions in hand to make use of it. Yeah, I mean, you could also do this. You can just Azure Drake next turn.
This is a much better kind of, not ramp as such, but kind of the curve is a lot better for Sottle in this game. He really lacked that last game.
He actually has cards to play.
He actually has minions
to
play rather than being stuck with spells that do absolutely zilch.
Wrath's pretty good. You can stop the card draw from the Patron, but then you're playing off curve again. I guess you could Wrath Innovate Azure Drake or Azure Drake Wrath Innovate Wrath. I suppose.
So Wrath the Acolyte. Is that what you're saying?
It really depends, right? Because if you play Azure Drake, you know that you're probably going to trade his 4/3 into it, just based on what's on board, right? We know that there is some tools to deal with this kind of thing in the hand of Mysterious. Yeah, I think this is the better play. I would Wrath. Yeah, there you go. Because card draw is like the quintessential part of the Patron Warrior, right? So the more card draw you can deny, the less pieces they've got. Death Spite comes through, but we know that Harrison Jones is there.
Yeah, so now it's going to... I mean, do you trade the Shade in right now? Or do you just wait for that to ramp up?
I think you just wait.
You just wait. If you trade the Shade in right now, you're just risking it getting executed.
The Patron coming out for Mysterious will encourage him to play this Death Spite, but we know Harrison Jones is waiting to steal it from the hands of Mysterious.
Yeah, but next turn there is the Whirlwind effect from the Whirlwind spell that is still viable for Mysterious. I think Harrison Jones just comes down here, right?
I think maybe Sottle will be considering running into the Unstable Ghoul here, because if he is concerned about the Whirlwind effect from the Death Spite, then he may also be concerned about the 1/3 running into the Harrison Jones when that does come down.
Yeah.
So it would mean that if he does run into it and then the Death Spite disappears, Mysterious would only generate 2 Patrons from the Patron plus Whirlwind spell in his hand.
You do end up losing your Shade here, though.
from the Whirlwind.
Yeah.
But he won't know that the Whirlwind is in hand, obviously. I think that's a good play. I think that's a solid play, and he might even hero power.
And if you get a one damage 2-drop coming out from the Shredder, then you are happy, right?
Well, I'm always happy if I get a 1-drop.
No, a 1 damage 2-drop from the
Yeah,
Shredder, because then you know that Harrison Jones is unlikely to go down, and you can maybe start dealing with some of the patrons.
Yes, of course. He will be slightly concerned if Milhouse Mana Storm comes out, however.
Well, would you? Because you know that whatever comes out is going to trade into Harrison Jones, right?
Well, I mean, you much prefer to have something with low attack, but there you go. That is going to be the old Pirate-a-Rooney. That's what they all call it, I think. Don't know what that was.
The trouble with
Yeah, literal same.
the trouble with Grim Patron into Whirlwind is you've only got 2 patrons on board. You haven't dealt with. Yes, okay, you have dealt with the Harrison Jones, but there are means of dealing with 2 patrons from the Druid. If
You've already seen one Wrath, right?
you have, but there are other means of dealing with it.
So in my eyes, the only way you deal with patrons, right, is Wrath and Living Roots. So you have to have the other Wrath and Living Roots in the hand to deal with a 3/3 and a 3/2 patron.
As well as Swipe, of course.
Swipe can't deal with.
Well, but if you were to Living Roots it first, if you
Yes,
the 3/2
okay,
and then
yeah,
you've got
yeah.
the Swipe. So there are ways of
ways,
doing
yeah.
it. It's whether Mysterious will think this is a waste of his Whirlwind effect, just getting the 2 patrons. But he does go down. I mean, killing the Shade and just clearing the board in general is still a solid play. So
I think it was the only play you could make from that situation. Boom is a great card to drop, though.
is it?
Well,
This is the thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, yes, okay, Boom is a great card to drop against patrons, but sometimes it plays into the hand of patron. It's a target
sure, yeah.
the patron to just to generate more patrons. It's just where those bombs hit.
yeah, I completely agree in the sense, but it actually also forces the Patron Warrior to have an answer, right? Because you're a combo druid and you're heading towards turn 9, the Patron Warrior has to have some sort of answer to Boom. We know that he's got the answer, but Sottle wouldn't. This also makes a lot of sense too, but also we know that it's dealt with via the Fiery War Axe. With
So
another patron
it's
too.
whether Mysterious will see what comes out of the Shredder here to make another patron. If it is something with either 1 or 2 attack, that is going to help quite a lot. But I already saw a reaction on his face. It's a Lightwell, which is not going to help him whatsoever right now.
Exactly, it's going to be the opposite of help. It's exactly what he didn't want to see. I think playing another patron here is fine. It just makes it way harder for Sottle to deal with the board again.
If Sottle was to draw into a Living Roots, would he be able to clear board? Yes, he would. But he doesn't. He gets away with it. At some point, you've got to be thinking, right, I can't just let this Dr. Boom sit in my hand forever, can I?
So do you just lower Theb this turn?
To try and reduce any more patron spawning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then next turn you hope you draw the combo?
I guess so. That's pretty much what every druid does, right? Just
Yeah.
hope that you draw a combo. I mean, Mysterious was probably thinking that combo was already sat in the hands of Sottle, as usually it is always in the hands of the druid.
So if you draw Savage Roar next turn, that's lethal unless... I think even if you... Because you're probably going to face tank this lower Theb, right? Unless you really are worried about the combo. And I think going into turn 9 you would be. But if you lose those patrons, you lose one of your win conditions.
I mean, Mysterious would have noticed that those 2 cards in the bottom left-hand corner have been in the hand of Sottle for quite a while now. He obviously won't know one of them is Innovate. He's probably thinking that's Force of Nature, Savage Roar.
Savage Roar. So do you just trade 2 patrons into lower Theb here? Because if you face tank and you think he's got combo, you're dead.
I think you have to. I think you always... That's the thing. When you're playing against Druid, you always have to assume they've got combo or they're going to draw into it. And you're constantly worried. He's got no means to kind of spawn more patrons, so I think he's just got to trade into these and just take it on the chin and maybe drop the Shredder afterwards. Well, of course drop the Shredder afterwards. There's no other play.
Play Armor Smith, you get 1 armor for trading in 1 patron. Face, armor up. It's a net loss of 2 HP, so it puts him at 19. Oh, he's going to execute. Okay, that's the 6 mana execute.
I suppose if you don't really have many other options, it doesn't necessarily matter how much mana it costs. Just because if you... I mean, he could have played the Shredder as well, but...
The important thing is he can clear these patrons now. But he is going to give more armor to the warrior, but are you worried about that in this situation?
Well, you know that that's all of his patrons in his deck, right?
Yeah.
So you clear those, and suddenly most of the threats of the patron warrior is gone. I think that's the most sensible play. Trade in, swipe.
Innovate boom?
Yeah. Yeah,
Is that
for
a
sure.
play?
That's a play.
Well, going to be able to take out the patrons, and that is going to be a huge sigh of relief for Sottle, really, being able to get rid of that threat. And now it's kind of just a matter of playing the waiting game until he can draw that combo, because that's kind of the win condition for Sottle right now. He needs to be able to get those cards. He needs to be able to get that Savage Roar for the guaranteed 14 damage out of Force of Nature.
So you play Shredder and BGH here, right? Because you can't play your own boom because you just assume that you die, and we know that he does die with Force of Nature, even without the Savage Roar. Or does,
I think you have to boom.
Yeah, so...
I think you have to big game the boom, sorry.
Yeah.
And even then, you're still worried about this combo.
Because it's 8 damage in hand plus... Oh no, so you wouldn't actually die if... It just meant that, I meant if he face tanked the Shade, so he's not going to face tank the Shade. That's probably the most sensible option. You could play...
I understand this play. 'Cause
Yeah.
he's just trying to get rid of those tokens, but the 3 damage kind of is exactly the same thing as it would have been if it was to get the Savage Roar effect anyway. Does Force of Nature Savage Roar win him the game here? 6,
No,
12, 14?
no.
No, not quite. Wild Growth does allow more card draw for Sottle.
He needs it. I think regardless of what happens here, we're going to see a Living Roots onto the Shredder, and then you trade the 1/1 in, hoping it takes out the 4/4, the 4/2, right? Well, Druid the Claw is a great draw.
It's a great draw.
Now you can just Living Roots the
Oh, you
4/2.
can do both.
Yeah,
I would think you live room
yeah.
to 4-2.
4/2
Yep.
with the Druid Claw, you definitely Living Roots the 4/2. If you had a desperation play, you Living Roots the 4/3, and then you hope that you take out the 4/2, because that is like the desperation play. But given the fact that you get that taunt, you know that the Shredder's probably going to trade in.
I mean, Dr. Boom here is going to be a very solid play for Mysterious, and Sottle still not having the combo in hand. I mean, you can actually Frothing and Dr. Boom. Is that a better play than just Dr. Boom Armor Up? Armor Up obviously is an essential tool against Druid because you're just constantly putting yourself out of that combo range.
I think Dr. Boom... I mean, look, let's think about it here. He's not going to clear what's on board this turn, so you're facing an extra... With the combo, you're facing an extra 9 damage, right? You're facing an extra 9 damage with the combo. So does Armor Up save you from 14? I don't think it does. Or does
Armor Up puts you on 23, and I think he's got exactly
23. So
with
Armor Up
lethal.
means absolutely zero difference in this case.
And he would have calculated that. These are top Hearthstone players, the best in the UK.
It's not Savage Roar.
It's not a Savage Roar.
And actually, Sottle might just be starting to sweat a little bit here, because obviously we've been talking about how if he can get this combo, we've got all this damage coming out, but actually he doesn't have that combo just yet. He's still a little way away from being able to finish this game off, and now there's a Dr. Boom on the board. You've got the Shredder as well, so there's a lot of very difficult to deal with minions available.
13 cards left for Sottle as well.
So it's a
And
2 out of 13 chance that you draw. So you've got an almost 20% chance, nearly 20% chance that you draw that. So it's probably like a 16 to 17% chance that you draw Savage Roar in the next turn. I like
It's not.
I like
mean, it's
silencing.
not great odds.
I think you have to silence the
Yeah.
Shredder here. And he's actually opting to use the Force of Nature for a clear.
So you go into Dr. Boom, then just trade your bomb into Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I can understand this play. There are not really any real threats now in the deck of Mysterious, but the bomb does just hit for 1. If that had hit for 3, that could have been huge. The Acolyte of Pain will actually help a little bit, though, for the card draw, if
Yeah,
you can
for sure.
get some value out of it.
You know you're not dead to combo because there's no cards in hand of Sottle, so you just put this down, run face.
Sottle will know there's not really much left now for Mysterious. I mean, realistically, what has he got in his deck now?
Another Frothing Berserker.
Has he got a Corcoran Elite? Is he even running in
No,
Corcoran
he's not running the
Elites?
Corcoran's Elites. That
Another
wouldn't have been
Force of
lethal, so
Nature.
it's good that he used the Savage Roar, the Force of Nature there, because he probably would have died that turn, right? So he may have the Gromash left. That's probably the only win condition he's got left. He's got another Death's Bite.
Inner Rage?
Inner Rage, yep, that's obviously a great card he could draw. He's also got slams and things like that just to help him with the card draw, but I think the only finisher he's got left is another Frothing Berserker and Gromash.
I think that was probably the worst card that Sottle could have drawn. Well, maybe not the worst, maybe Savage Roar wouldn't have really helped either, but he would have really been wanting a minion there to be put on the board.
If you use your Force of Nature, you now lose your win condition, right?
Well,
Pretty much.
you're hoping that you are going to out-tempo your opponent with you, and that your card draws are going to be better than theirs. With the Acolyte of Pain being on board, instantly Mysterious is going to have more card draw. You know that the patron has card draw in its deck, so Sottle will be worried about that.
So do you just run your 2/4 into the Acolyte and then hero power it because you want to risk? You don't want to risk Inner Rage because obviously you can't Inner Rage the bombs.
It does look like Sottle is going to go for that play. He's going to gift Mysterious 2 cards, the Execute being the first one.
I actually think this is looking fantastic for Mysterious right now because really,
Gromash.
Gromash comes out. There's no
Okay.
way to enrage right now.
Yeah, there is. You just charge it into the 2/3.
Well,
yeah.
I meant like the instant enrage, but
So he could Battle Rage for an Inner Rage.
Exact. I think you just Battle Rage with Gromash being, because this is the best Battle Rage you're going to get, right,
Yeah,
for a while.
And so
Cruel
even
Taskmaster.
Savage Roar won't win the game for Sottle here.
no.
If he hadn't have run his, yeah, I mean that's it for Sottle, right? I mean you can clear, but
Well,
basically
he can Force of Nature into the Gromash and then swipe
and then swipe.
face, and that clears board. You are going to risk 8 damage to face, putting you to 3.
Actually, what do we think that that Sottle's got left in his deck? Have we seen Laws yet? Those are pretty big threats.
Laws, and I think another Druid of the Claw as well. I think we've only seen one of those.
Yeah.
Some of them only run one Druid of the Claw now.
Sludge Belchers.
Yeah, could do.
So actually, I think the swipe is
Yeah,
it's a
so
very
actually
important card.
that's
He's just
pretty
going to
good.
want to hope that these boombots don't hit too hard.
Well, they're not going to kill him either way. There's literally, even if they both hit for 4, he's not dead. But
No.
then you are worried about a Death Bite top deck.
Yep. Which we know is in the deck of Mysterious.
So let's think. If Death Bite comes out, that puts Sottle on a 2-turn clock regardless, right?
He's opting to swipe.
I mean, it makes. That's a good. That's
3
a good
damage
set.
as well. That's great news
So
for Sottle,
he-
honestly. But it's still you mentioned the 2-turn timer if Death Rattle comes out. Aside from hero power,
Why did he opt for the extra 2 damage on face rather than swiping face and running? If he had run all 3 of the Force of Nature,
I think.
then he would have got. That was a better play, right?
there would have been like
he
2
would have
extra
he would have got
damage,
2 extra
yeah.
damage.
Do you just? I mean, you've seen 2 swipes. You haven't seen both Wraths yet, right? Though. Have we seen both Wraths yet? I think we've only seen one Wrath.
Wrath came out, I think.
I remember a game where he had 2 Wraths in his starting hand, but that might have been the last one. Savage
That's it,
Roar.
right?
The draw comes out.
That's it for Sottle. There's nothing.
Yeah,
you can
Inner
do.
Rage is available.
Yeah.
That has got to be game. Because, well,
Because even if he clears the 2/2 or the 5/3, wait, if he clears,
if he
yeah,
clears the 5,
no, he's
no, even
the Inner
then,
Rage
Inner
gives
Rage still
too much.
kills.
And Mysterious knows as he begins bouncing his knees.
Yeah,
Well, I assume he's bouncing his knees.
It's exact lethal with Inner Rage, right? Because you just Inner Rage your 2/2.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Death Spite off the top, so he would have won either way.
So there it is. That is going to be Mysterious taking the 3rd game in this series. It's now going to be 2-1 as Sottle's Druid. Unfortunately, not really doing so hot for him. 2 games in a row he's lost on that Druid. Really not ideal, obviously, for Sottle. And now he's kind of... This is the point now for Sottle. Do you continue to play that Druid? I mean, you have to win with it at some point.
I mean, yeah, honestly. When you look at it statistically, you're going to say, I have to win in the next 2 games. My draws are going to be independent of each other. No matter what I play next, I'm going to have the same chance of winning if I queue my Druid up now or queue my Druid up next. If I win with my Druid now, I keep my chances alive in the series. And I think out of all 3 decks against Secret Paladin, Druid has kind of got the best chance. It's still tough.
I think Sottle's going to be thinking, right, I've had all my bad luck now with this deck. Let's play it one more time. maybe I'll finally get the draws, I'll finally get the combo, and that's the problem with Druid, is just sometimes you don't draw into that combo and you just have no finisher whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between the druid that we saw Cypher play and the combo druid, that you saw both Force of Natures go down. Once you lose part of your finisher, you don't really have the threats.
Yeah.
I mean, the Grommash draw was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like for both of the players, they were kind of out of threats towards the end of the game. As you say, rightly, the Grommash kind of was the deciding factor in that game, the fact that he managed to draw that threat. But when we saw the Force of Nature used by Sottle, and then he drew into his second Force of Nature, it was kind of like, okay, now we're actually in trouble, because there was just no... I mean, you said it during the game, there was no way for him to recontrol the board. He needed to get some minions out. He needed something to actually be affected by the Savage Roar, because if you have to use both of your Force of Natures, what then do you have to finish the game with?
I think Ancient of Law would have really made a difference there.
Sure.
If
for
he
sure.
if he had got at any point in that game, just been able to draw 2 extra cards,
Yep.
would have changed the game.
I don't believe we saw an Ancient of Law draw whatsoever.
No, we didn't.
And it's actually Druid's worst nightmare. Bottom 10 cards, both of your Ancient of Laws and both of your Savage Roars. And you're using your Ancient of Laws to draw into things like your Savage Roar and Force of Nature. It was a Druid's worst nightmare. But we are into the next match, ladies and gentlemen, and Sottle choosing the Shaman.
Yeah, so deciding to change things up, and maybe this will get him out of the funk that it feels like he's in on this one. The mulligan is underway, and honestly, for the Shaman, it's certainly looking like a very, very aggressive Shaman going to be coming out right now.
And what an early
Pretty decent
draw.
starting draw.
You don't mulligan any of that, right? That's
No.
perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you've got nice mana curve. You've even got the Flame Juggler to potentially deal with any 1/1 that might come out.
Do you mulligan away the Keeper of Alderman here for Mysterious? He's just going to keep it all.
I think that's a pretty good. I mean, this is the deck that I used to get to Legend this season, right? Yeah, I just thought to throw that in
You're going to throw that one in there. I was wondering when that was going to happen.
So I like the redemption here, right? You Secret Keeper coin redemption so that even if there is the tools to deal with it, it comes back to life and you have the Avenge next turn. That's why I always like keeping redemption in my opening hand if I have either Secret Keeper or Knife Juggler. Even sometimes if I have Shielded Minibot, because all of those are really, really good redemption targets.
Yep.
I mean, the top deck of Avenge is huge because there was no real turn 2 play from his mulligan. That was my only concern with him not mulliganing away the Keeper of Alderman. But yeah, that Avenge is really going to help because it's also going to buff the Secret Keeper.
The issue is for Sottle here, he has now got the option either to go for a 50-50 face juggler play.
And the Juggler always hits face.
Yeah, that's why it's got
Every
the nickname
single time.
face juggler.
Let's see what it's going to go for this time.
Oh no!
I'm always wrong when I say that. Maybe I should always say it's the face Juggler.
So do you even bother playing Avenge this turn? Because regardless, you can mind game. Oh, top deck here.
The Avenge and Noble Sack is well, that's a pretty sexy turn 2 play if I don't say so myself.
I think it's more than sexy right here. And now you just go face, right? Oh no, you don't. Okay, right.
No, I think you clear because then it rules out the possibilities of the Abusive Sergeant.
I mean, you got Noble Sacrifice.
Yes, you do.
Because my issue is he runs his Noble Sacrifice in, Avenge hits a really key target like Secret Keeper. I guess you're kind of worried for the Earth Shock, which we now can see is in Sottle's hand. I think Sottle Earth Shocks here, but then you kind of lose a huge amount of tempo by not playing something like your Argent Horse Rider.
I think Argent Horse Rider is okay here because you've got the Earth Shock as a follow-up next turn
Yeah.
if you need it.
And if you Earth Shock and Avenge to Secret Keeper, kind of negates that.
But already you're on the back foot here
Yeah.
as Face Shaman. And that's not good. Being on the back foot against a Secret Paladin is definitely not good.
But then you look, there's only 2 cards in the Secret Paladin's hand, right?
Plus
So-
1 to be drawn next turn. But I mean, those 2 cards are Muster for Battle, which is probably the best 3-drop Paladin can get. And then a Keeper to make one of those 1/1s a 3/3. I mean, and by then you've already drawn 2 more cards. And he's probably going to get Mysterious Challenger because every single Secret Paladin always gets it. Does
like-
opt for the Earthshock now, which is fine.
I like the Earth Shock
I like
now.
that play.
Yeah. But it does mean that you lose the ability to Earth Shock the Avenge, which actually, given the state of that Secret Keeper, you could have got 2 for 1 for that Earthshock and actually procced some pretty key secrets early on here. I actually would have preferred the Argent Horse Rider play because then you know you have, like you said, you know you have the follow-up next turn. Obviously your Argent Horse Rider goes down to muster for battle, but you then basically get rid of 2 secrets in the form of Noble Sacrifice and Avenge, and then you get rid of the Secret Keeper with the Earthshock. You're kind of playing for the later stages of the game as opposed to dealing with it right now.
Tunnel Trog is a fantastic card if you've got some overload cards to kind of buff it. As the just 1/3 that it comes as standard, it's not really the best thing to put on the board.
I mean, you could even just totem here, hope for the taunt. You've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting that taunt out, and that's going to mean that at least your Trog could stay on board a little bit. You could even abusive the other totem.
Because I mean, if you opt to Horse Rider, one of these 1/1s, you've got to assume one of these secrets is going to be Avenge. I mean, it's what's the chances of it not being an Avenge? Really, we've already seen one.
I like potentially abusive sargeting your healing totem.
I mean, it's like the best target, right, to hit into a Noble Sacrifice. But that is going to come out. Obviously, Horse Rider going to hit that one. So I was about to say we'll see which one the Avenge hits. Not that it really matters; they are all the same minion. But
I don't think he managed to get the attack
no,
off.
Oh,
no,
he
he
did.
did. Okay.
Just.
But did he miss? I think because he was roping,
upset,
I think he just quickly targeted a minion there and was just unlucky of which one he chose because he wouldn't have known which one was going to get that Avenge.
So this is an easy play, right? You charge one of your 1/1s in, you hit with face, I suppose, and then you Alderman your last 1/1, and you've got a 4-1, a 3-3, and a 3-4 on the board, and suddenly Shaman is looking very, very sad.
Both Shaman and
Doomhammer
Sottle are looking sad
draw.
right now.
Doomhammer would have been
Perfect.
super nice.
Yeah.
The Crackle does offer the chance to kind of deal with this board, but you feel bad using it.
You do feel bad. And what? And do you crackle the? Okay, you're crackling the 3-4.
Surely you totem first if you're going to totem at all.
Yeah, you do. But he's actually
gonna
not going to totem at all. He's going to rock biter.
So,
I mean, well, in the grand scheme of things, he's done a good job to at least clear the majority of the board there. You've still got the 4-1, but
Shredder is a big draw.
Shredder's a huge draw, but now you're relying on top decks as the face shaman. You want options.
Ancestral Knowledge would probably be
Yeah.
good to draw here, just to kind of add more cards to your hand. That's
and
if
also
Sottle does.
buff the Trog as well.
Of course, yeah.
What do you think about not trading here? You put a secret down. You're playing a mind game, and also it's that sort of. I like the lightning bolt here. That's good, but he's still having to force to use his burn on trades, which is just really not what you want to be doing as a face shaman.
And you know that that mysterious challenger is just sitting in the deck and is waiting to be drawn. You've also got Tyrion there as well, so you're going to be worried about the top decks of the Secret Paladin.
So now I like the face play from Mysterious beforehand because essentially they're saying if you go, basically the theory is if you're going to trade anyway, then I might as well get the damage onto your face. And there's the Owl. That's probably the only realistic target to Owl in the game, and it manages to maintain this board and with competitive spirit and a dude as well, and the win.
There we go. So Mysterious going to be able to take this series 3